So I have to tell you, gosh, the backlash begins. I mean, AI is on voters' minds. You've been talking to people all around the country that have been thinking about this issue. What are they telling you?
Yeah, I think that this is a huge issue going into the midterm elections. And what I really wanted to do with the story was to look across the country and to better understand how these issues were playing out for voters and how certain candidates who are running for Congress next year are positioning these issues as part of their campaigns. I spoke with a congressional candidate in Georgia where there is a huge number of data centers. And she said that she was going to meetings where this was coming up almost on a weekly basis. A lot of concern among constituents out there about the impact of having these data centers and having so many in the works. There are several proposed data centers also. And she was looking to really make this a focus of her campaign. Similarly, I spoke to a candidate in Memphis
Hmm,
and also talked to a candidate out here in New York who was really pushing for AI regulation around safety issues.
right. And so you're talking to all these people. These are people from both sides of the aisle. I mean, how do they imagine this manifests itself in the upcoming elections?
Well, it is still very early, so I think there's a lot to come. But I do think that we're seeing, as AI becomes such a big part of all of our lives, we are seeing concerns about this technology, whether that's job losses, electricity costs, as you mentioned, also child safety and privacy issues. So these candidates, and I should be clear that the candidates I spoke to were Democrats. However, it's true that these issues are something that are of concern to both Democratic and Republican voters from my reporting, because these issues around electricity costs are concerns for so many at this point. Um, but there also are Republicans who have voiced concerns about AI. So you're seeing divisions in that party also about how to kind of handle this rapid pace of AI development as well.
So we just had an election in November. Were there any candidates that really pushed this agenda? Did we see the impacts of it at all?
I think these races was what sort of catapulted this issue and started to raise these questions about, will these issues become more prominent voter concerns? Will they influence more voters going forward? Because you saw candidates out in Virginia and in New Jersey really focusing their campaigns around electricity prices and the impact of data centers and data centers, having to pay their fair share. And this seemed to resonate with voters. Of course, there were other issues too that these politicians focused on in these areas, but there was a sort of current of these concerns being at the center of their campaigns, and they were successful.
Hmm. Now, whenever this comes up in discussion around politics, there obviously is the company angle to it, and companies trying to push candidates that are in agreement with their own platforms. Look, the big tech companies. I mean, this is a story that's been around for a while, given that these big tech companies have been there for decades. The newer tech companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, they've only lived through a couple election cycles in their lifetime. How much are they involved in politics right now?
Well, that was another reason why I wanted to do this story, because there is so many layers to this, and one of them is the angle around regulation. Who controls AI companies and what they can and cannot do? And there's really a big fight playing out in Washington right now and across the country about this, because the Trump administration wants to block states from being able to regulate AI. President Trump, in fact, posted on Truth Social this week that he intended to put out an executive order to this
Hmm.
effect. And there have been several attempts made to get this sort of over the line. The tech industry is supportive of this effort. A lot of politicians in state governors, for example, including Ron DeSantis, are not supportive of it and say that states have the right to implement guardrails around this really important technology as they see fit. The administration is pushing for some kind of national legislation. not sure of the details of that or how that would come together, but technology companies have come out in support of that. So you are seeing these companies sort of get involved. Executives from these companies are also getting involved. There are a couple of super PACs that have been formed,
Hmm.
both to push this sort of anti-state regulation line and to
Right.
counter it. And OpenAI's president, Greg Brockman, for example, has donated to the former, the PAC that's pushing back against state AI regulation and looking to support candidates who
Yeah.
who are in line with their views on that.
It is kind of funny to me to think about the amount of money that these companies are raising and will have to continue to raise to satisfy their operations, and then squaring that with whatever direction the political climate ends up going. It feels like a growing percentage of that may have to go to lobbying the government effectively. Look, I don't know if the percentage is actually going to grow or not, but it is kind of interesting to think about these companies fundraising to lobby the government in some capacity, and the fact that that is totally something that happens. I mean, it's something that
Yeah, well,
is not talked about sometimes.
right. Well, I mean, a lot of my reporting this year and why I think that my area of coverage is so interesting is because we've seen these companies really increase their presence in Washington, D.C. A lot of these CEOs are making personal inroads with Trump. And they certainly have increased their lobbying spend, absolutely, because they want to be able to push forward this technology, to grow their businesses, to secure government contracts, and really to have fewer restraints on that. And so the states which have been looking to pass legislation in lieu of any kind of federal standard, um, they pose roadblocks to these
Right.
companies. And so
Right.
they obviously don't want that. So there is a lot at stake here for these companies.
Right. Well, Sylvia, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. It's an issue that we don't talk about enough, and I'm excited to have you back again on soon.